Tami Reiss is a product strategy leader with almost 20 years of experience working with tech companies.
That's one of the reasons I love coaching, because every day I deal with a handful of clients with different businesses, different perspectives, different skill sets, different challenges, and there are common threads, but it keeps my brain moving, which is the way I like it to be.
Maybe you can tell me about the pivotal moment in your life when you realized that the path that you had chosen wasn't something that fulfilled you.
I always say, when I provide you advice, if it doesn't feel authentic to you, tell me why. Your real passion is helping people spread ideas.
Yes, for sure.
The videos are the method in which they spread ideas.
With the Be Yourself podcast, the podcast on expressing our true selves. Today I have Tami Reiss. She's a product leader coach, the founder of a company that's called Product Leader Coach. Hi, Tami. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. It's early in the morning for me.
Yeah, okay. I hope you're up for a thoughtful conversation.
Always up for a thoughtful conversation.
Maybe we can start off by you shortly introducing yourself and what are you doing as a product leader coach?
Well, that seems appropriate for the Be Yourself podcast. Hi, I'm Tami, often called Tami from Miami because that's where I live and grew up, and now the product leader coach. I have spent the last 15 plus almost 20 years in product management in different capacities. I have lots of fun stories. I have alternated between being in-house and being a consultant. And for the past 3.5 years, I've really focused on helping product leaders be awesome. So that's working one-on-one as a coach with product leaders, leading group coaching sessions for executive women in product, and doing a variety of other training and coaching sort of things that are all involving product management in general, strategy, documentation, product mindset, outcome-oriented thinking, and other things like that.
I can see that you use the word boutique consulting firm. So you only work one-on-one? Do you work with groups?
Boutique meaning more that I focus on product leaders. So that's first of all, generally in technology companies, generally in B2B SaaS companies. So it's a specialized thing. And as I was saying to a group of consultants yesterday who are thinking about going out solo, one of the things that I do that general coaches do not do is that because I have a consulting background, I also give advice. So I very often say, I'm not a therapist, I'm your coach. I'm going to look at the field. I'm going to tell you based on all the data points that I have from the hundreds of companies and hundreds of leaders I've worked with, what I see happening here and what I think you should do. And that could also be around organizational design or growth strategy or marketing or partnerships or anything else, which comes from my expertise and my experience as opposed to simply executive coaching.
This is a very interesting point because I once stepped into being a coach, a consultant. It didn't work for me. And, I was under the impression that since in my late 20s, I built a business and I worked with American consumers, I thought that I had it all covered to become a successful coach. And then in one of my recent episodes, I had a guy who's a seasoned CPO. Probably he's one person who you could be like a coach for. So he's a chief. Mark Harshberg, he's an author of the book.
I know Mark, we're good friends.
Really? Oh my God. So, and he said that actually the best coaches, like he brought an example of like the world of sports, that the best coaches were not necessarily great players themselves. And that was like an eye-opener for me. I can see in your description that you are on the sidelines and have the view of the entire playing field. Maybe you can give me your perspective. Who are the best coaches? Should they necessarily have the hands-on experience, or they can be great observers, collecting all the best practices and then teaching others?
I think that it's a combination. So I think to become a coach, especially in a specialty like technology, and not be providing only generic advice, you have to have at some point been an operator. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that you need to have done it. You need to have worked in the environment. You need to have
Yeah.
gone through a few, not one, but a few cycles of the experiences that you will have in the workplace. And that
Mm-hmm.
would be the same if I was coaching teachers or something else, right? I think that there's a true value to having lived it and been in those person's shoes or something similar to their shoes. That being said, being a coach doesn't necessarily mean you were highly successful in that role, because there are lots of
Mm-hmm.
people who are highly successful in that role because they're good at coaching individuals like within their team,
Yep.
but they aren't necessarily good at coaching people on their level. They don't always know why they're good at their job. They don't know the data points and the trends that make them successful in order to help other people repeat it. And so much of coaching is teaching. So much of coaching is listening. And therefore, like, you have to be good at that stuff more than you have to be the best at the actual operation and function. And so when you look at fantastic coaches in the sports arena, most of them at some point were athletes in their sport, because
Yeah, they're not
they've played on
totally.
the
Mm-hmm.
court, they've played on the field, and they weren't necessarily the best, but they
Yep.
had a great understanding of the sport and therefore could see opportunities that not other people have. Like, they have a more strategic mind than necessarily athletic ability. And so I have been in the trenches, and I don't personally love it. Like, I don't love being focused on one thing for years at a time. That doesn't bring me joy. And if you're going to be a head of product, VP of product, CPO, you should be dedicating yourself to a company for at least 3 years. And I get bored. And that's one of the reasons I love coaching, because every day I deal with a handful of clients with different businesses, different perspectives, different skill sets, different challenges. And there are common threads, but it keeps my brain moving, which is the way I like it to be. But for the athlete thing, what I talk about when I'm talking to people who are thinking about working with a coach, I ask them what sport they played. So, Sergey, what sport did you play?
Basketball.
Basketball. Okay. So, basketball. You are on the field. You are the person who needs to shoot the ball, pass the ball, dribble the ball, etc. A coach who's on the sidelines sees not only the small peripheral vision you have, but the entire court. And they can say to you things like, hey, when you were going down court, you missed that your co-player, like someone on your team, your teammate, was sitting down there at the basket, and it would have been faster to pass the ball than for you to dribble and go for the layup. Right?
Yeah.
And they were open down there, so they would have probably scored. And that's because you didn't see that. They also can say something like, hey, when you're doing your free throw shooting, you need to do more follow through on your hand. Or your left
Absolutely.
hand is positioned incorrectly and it's causing a bad spin. If you just change the angle a little bit, right? And that is what the fine tuning that coaches can observe and see based on pattern recognition of all of the players and the whole court. And at the same point, you're the player. So you have to do it in an authentic way that feels right for you. So it may be that you need to bend your knees a little bit more. It may need to be that you vision yourself in a certain way. It may mean that you need to think about it and say, okay, I'm not going to immediately look down court, but as I'm dribbling, I'm going to make sure I lift up my head to look down court. And after 3 dribbles, I'm going to say, okay, I see a person there and pass. Then I'm going to count to 3 and make a choice or something else, right? You'll have to come up with your own system, but the coach is there to help get the best out of every player.
Tami, it seems to me that the people who you work with, you become pretty close with them, because in order for you to have the big picture, they have to give you enough data points, right, about what's going on, because obviously you can't be there observing from the sidelines what's going on in their organization. Therefore, they need to really give you all the ins and outs of what's going on. Can you give me some glaring examples of the people who were hitting the ceiling, who just couldn't overcome something? You knew that there were more for them, and maybe some little things, not even the big things, the little thing that they didn't notice, you helped them to uncover in order for them to make this next step.
Sure. I've got tons and tons of stories like that. But the 2 that come to mind are, I had a client who I was working with, and she was at a big technology company where they had a very formalized promotion process. And a lot of getting a promotion there was visibility and seeing results and having lots of people in your corner. And she had a perspective that very often she would be in a group of other product people and engineers, and she would come up with a solution to a problem that was suggested. And then someone else would take the reins and make that solution a reality. And what would happen is someone would say, ooh, I'll lead that initiative. And she said to me, I don't want to step on their toes. Which was fair, right? That's who she was as a person. She didn't like to take other people's thunder. And so I changed her frame of reference. And I said to her, if you were involved in this project or initiative, would it be more successful? And she said 100%, because she's capable and smart. And it was her idea, right? Like, so she had some sort of understanding of what was going on to come up with this solution that other people were excited about. And I said, great. So don't think about it as raising your hand to step on someone else's toes and share their thunder. Think about it as raising your hand to ensure success of the project or initiative. And it changed her entire outlook and trajectory. Beyond that, I had a client who was a seasoned professional, like one of my favorite clients of all time. And she turned to me at some point and said, hey, I don't know if I'm giving good board slides because I've never seen anyone else's. They're confidential. And I'm just not sure. I've been doing this for a decade, but no idea. Do you have templates you could show me? And I said, absolutely, I do have templates. Absolutely, I'm happy to look at yours and give you advice based on what I know from investors, from boards of directors about what they like and what they don't like. But also, who are the users of your board decks? And she said, the board. And I said, great, go do some user research. And that meant to her, because she was a product person, to talk to the board, ask them what their pains and gains and needs are, ask them what they liked and didn't like about what she was providing. And I said to her, I said, they look at lots of other board decks, right? They've been presented to by dozens or hundreds of other product leaders. They know what good looks like, and you can ask them, hey, what else are you seeing other product leaders do that I should incorporate to make this better for you? And again, like it opened a door for her to realize that the board wasn't just a group of people that was sitting on the other side of the table. They were people who could be her partners. They were people who she could rely on. They were people who she could talk to and use for her growth, because at her level, there aren't very many people she could turn to. I often say, like, the reason why people need a coach more and more as they go higher and higher is it's harder and harder to turn to your boss for advice. Either because they've never done your job. Because very often, if you're in the C-suite, the CEO has never had your title, whether that is CISO, head of customer success, chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer, chief product officer, chief technology officer. There is a high probability that your CEO never had your title. And therefore, they don't know how to be a great operator in your role. And at the same point, turning to them for advice only decreases their trust and confidence in you that you can't do your job by yourself. So we need to find people.
This is so interesting because for me, this has been one of my pain points. Asking dumb questions. In my I personally believe that this is a superpower. I feel that if you're not afraid to show vulnerability and admit that you don't know stuff, you ain't gonna grow because you're just gonna feel embarrassed, sort of asking this question. This actually jumping like off what you said, that people can't turn to their boss asking for questions. So the solution for them is to actually find someone like you to ask these questions, just not to be embarrassed, right?
It could be someone like me. I'm now working with a group called Sidebar, which creates personal advisory boards for people so that you have a group of peers to give you advice on an ongoing basis. One-on-one coaching isn't for everybody. There are lots of other options out there, but I do think it is good to have a sounding board. I really do think it is very functional and can really accelerate you and accelerate your growth to have a group of people you trust to give you advice. And so one more thing that you mentioned earlier that I just wanted to touch on, the nature of the individual having more context than I do. 100% agree. And so there are a few things that I say to help combat that. So number one, I always say, when I provide you advice, if it doesn't feel authentic to you, tell me why. If you, who always have more context about the different people and the different situations, don't think it will be successful, tell me why, and I will provide new advice. Because if you provide me more data points, I can be more informed, and I'm not invested in being right. I'm invested in you being awesome. So the more information you give me, the better. But as you noted, it's only from their perspective. So I do also offer a lot of my clients the option to use some of their sessions for me to talk with their boss or some of their peers in a sort of 360 fashion so that I can understand what other people are seeing as their weaknesses, what other people are saying as what makes them awesome, beyond what I'm seeing from the stories they tell.
My podcast is called Be Yourself, and I was contemplating a lot about how I want to call my podcast, and it all comes from my personal experience. I reflect a lot on my life, and I have a blog, but then I realized that even though I like writing, I can see you do writing a lot. Even though I like writing, I like speaking even more. And actually, when I heard you on Tatiana's podcast, you were such a high energy, and I instantly knew that I wanted to talk to you because in a way I recognize myself in you, because I also like a full cup, and people tell me like, we want to listen to you just because like the energy, right? And so the podcast Be Yourself, initially I wanted to call it like Find Yourself, because I've gone through this transformation and I pivoted from a corporate life, right? I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I went through all the stages from from bootstrapping, and then we found investment, and then all these board meetups, and then I would come to the office imitating such a big boss who knew all the answers, even though I had no, I didn't know what the future holds, whatever. So I and I didn't know if we would even survive as a startup, So, and then I left And now I'm building this production agency, where we help people to start their own podcasts, believe it or not. So, and for me, I'm one of my most one of the biggest interests for me, for people who change something in their life, is what was that moment like for you? You said that you want to be more of a jack of all trades. You want to have a wider perspective, right? What, maybe you can tell me about the pivotal moment in your life when you realized that the path that you had chosen wasn't something that fulfilled you, and you wanted to go for a change. Maybe not moment, maybe a series of moments, or what helped you, maybe some person, a role model. That would be something that I'm
Um,
super interested to know about.
there are so many people along the way that have helped. I have
Uh-huh.
lots of sounding boards, but the two pivotal things that come to mind are when I was running a consultancy and I decided that we needed to sell it, and I helped the owners find a buyer, and theoretically everyone has been happy with how that turned out. Um, and I had a meeting with a friend of mine named Trace Wax, and he said, well, what do you want to do next? And I said, honestly, what I want to do is work within a venture capital fund as a product person, working with their investments to help those companies do product better. Because if they aren't doing product better, they will fail. Like they will just crash, and then you're throwing out your money. So why not invest in someone like me to work with those companies? That job did not exist in 2014, 2015, outside of like maybe two or three venture capital firms. And generally, they were hiring people who had previously been a CPO within their ecosystems. And therefore, I went to work in house and I enjoyed it. I had fun at JustWorks. And I got an email one day from Melissa Perry that said, I was talking to Trace and I was trying to recruit him for this role, working with an Inside Partners as a CPO in residence. And he said, I'm not the right person for you. Tami is. And he forwarded me an email you sent to him 3 years ago on the topic.
Oh, so that person basically introduced them to some, like, opened the door for you in a way.
Yeah, but it was because we had had that conversation. It was because I had put it down in writing. It was because I had a very clear sense of what I wanted to do, even if it didn't exist, right? I wanted to create this idea. And 3 years
Unique
later,
voice.
it was a more common thing. And then I got to do it. And I had so much fun. And I hope to be able to do it again and again and again. But what I learned in that experience was, number one, I don't really like working for private equity firms. And I was tending to be on the private equity side of Insight. And that's a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with private equity. It simply isn't my preference, the kind of returns and schedules that they're looking for. But also that I loved working one-on-one with product leaders. Like I loved working with people who were already near the top of their game to be even higher, right? To elevate people who were smart and capable and take them a level higher, get through whatever their ceilings or walls that were blocking them, and help them fine tune the way they talked about things so that they could get buy-in, so that they could build trust, so that they could build confidence. And I got to work with a CPO named Kevin Broom, who throughout our time together, but one of the things I helped him with was a particular board meeting. And afterwards, he was so grateful that I was this sounding board for him because he had been proposing a particular kind of growth. And I said, I think it would be helpful if we at least explored the other ways you could grow to make sure that this is still the best option. And we came up with, at the time, 10 strategies for growth, which then eventually became the 16 strategies for growth, which is now a checklist that anybody can go through and say, like, okay, I thought I needed to go up market, but let me look at the other options out there and see, should I in fact do a partnership channel? Should I instead do self-service? What are my goals, right? Am I trying to increase revenue, increase retention, lower costs? And that was awesome. But he wrote to me one day and he said, Tami, like, you as a sounding board, you took my ideas and you put them in an order and you polished them in a way that they were more successful, right? Because it's so hard to be the player on the field and not be looking at the ball. It's your job to keep your eye on the ball, not to look at the whole court. And so it was at that moment that I bought productleadercoach.com. I still had a full-time job. And I just said, this is what's next for me. I know this is what's next for me. I don't know if it's 2 years down the line or 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. But whenever this adventure ends, and COVID ended it, this is what was next. And so I enjoy what I do.
It's a telling story. You know, I had like a beef, not a beef, but an argument with one guy on his Instagram. He said that if you want to go solo, if you want to leave your job, you first need to create some sort of a foundation, some sort of a, I don't know, like a foundation for you to leave. So you can't leave right away. You know, and I came from a different perspective. I said, like, hey, before you actually go all in on something, you can't like kill two birds with one stone. You can't combine efficiently. You can't, for example, you want to be a consultant, an independent consultant, but you're still having your 9 to 5 life, right? So, I mean, like, how effective can you be in marketing that you're now an independent consultant? So, your experience supports the idea that you actually have to stay like keep your job before you link out, or not.
I think that it was just more that I enjoyed my job, right? Like, I enjoyed what I was doing, and it wasn't that I wasn't getting to do one-on-one coaching. I was also doing a lot of other things. Okay. I was leading roundtables, which I still enjoy. I was writing content, which I still enjoy. I was working with a fantastic group of really smart, dedicated people, right? I just knew that at some point it would be over and that this was going to be my next step. I didn't run for it. I didn't like leave my job. It very much was, I'm enjoying this. This is the part I enjoy most. I think I can make something just out of this later in life. But that being said, I think that the nature of what your friend was giving you as advice for that like foundation or support, that depends on your own risk tolerance and your responsibilities. So I worked with a woman who met me at the industry conference, and she was the CPO of an educational technology nonprofit. And I just loved her. And I was like, I want to coach you. I don't even care if like you can't afford me. Like, we'll find a number that works for this nonprofit. I thought she was fantastic. And for a variety of reasons, that role ended for her. And she was looking for new roles. And she had an opportunity to work for Khan Academy. And she said to me, the job is as a senior PM, not as a chief product officer. I'm not sure if the title decrease is something I should really like avoid and run from. And we had a conversation about what her personal situation was. And it turned out that I was like, you have a child. Do you have healthcare? Like, are you the person responsible for healthcare in your family? Because in the United States, healthcare is tied to your job. And she said, yes, I am. My husband is currently working on a PhD or something like that, right? So healthcare came through her. She was a sole breadwinner supporting her family. And I said, take this job. I said, not only is it a good brand and a good opportunity, like you're going to learn. And like, there were a variety of reasons why it was the right job. And she's happy there. She's been there for a year and a half now. But it was about her situation, right? There are people who have financial independence, or they've saved a lot, or they know they have super connections, or they don't have families to support, right? I have friends who live in Los Angeles who they alternate who's doing like the low income thing, like going back to school or starting a nonprofit. And they alternate who's doing it, because they say, in my version of supporting my partner, is that this is the 5 years I get to do this thing while they are working hard. And in another 5 years, I'm going to be the person working hard to make sure we can pay our bills and otherwise, but they're going to get to work on a passion project. And that's the way they operate. And there are lots of different ways to do it. But I think that the main reason to have some sort of support or foundation is that you don't want to make decisions simply because of pressure and anxiety
Yes,
and
absolutely.
fear.
Oh my
And
God.
so you want to be able to
100%.
make good choices. And that depends on making sure you're okay.
I can't agree more, because I took this leap of faith. I left my job, and I started like developing this new enterprise. And at times I had to speed up, or just remind people, my leads, for example, remind them about, hey, do you want to work with me or not? And it obviously hurts my reputation, right? Because people don't want to be rushed, especially well, when they're still on the fence if they want to buy something or not. They might think that, hey, if you need me so much, maybe I don't want to work with you. This is an interesting psychological
Yeah, you can't come off as
thing.
desperate. A better question to ask is, what can I do to make this move forward? Right? What questions do you have that are causing a delay?
Temi, tell me about the source of new clientele for you. Is it solely word of mouth? Do you have a lot of media appearances? Do they help? Maybe for all the people listening to us who are about to try going on their own, what has been working for you in terms of lead generation channel and marketing?
There are a lot of different channels I have. The best channel I've ever had is still referrals. So whether that's my clients or people I've worked with, or people like Melissa, who used to be my boss, who refers me people who often come through the CPO Accelerator program. But in my case, there's also LinkedIn writing that I do. There's speaking at conferences that I do. There's podcasts like this that I do. They tend to be more a matter of brand building and awareness. So it's more that it's out there. I don't think that every time I post something, someone's going to read it and then I'm going to get a meeting for a potential client. What I do think is that by having this vast library of podcasts where I'm talking and blog posts that I've written, etc., that when you search for a topic that is a problem for you, that is a question for you, right? You're thinking about how do you improve your executive presence. You're thinking about how do you get a promotion. You're thinking about how do you get a job when you're not sure you have all of the qualifications. All of those sorts of questions we have, that if I have content out there that gives you good advice, then you will contemplate saying, hey, maybe I should talk to this person to get more personalized advice. Because the advice I'm going to give out into the public is obviously going to be more generic. And so that's my hope by doing all of that stuff and posting on LinkedIn and being part of communities and having conversations, is that I believe by giving free advice, I become a more trusted source of advice. And then when people have bigger problems that they want to have a more vulnerable and intimate conversation about, they will potentially turn to me as the person that can help them.
What are the most common mistakes that product managers do that you can't, you just hear and observe and see all over the place? Because it's interesting, because I, as an owner of a production agency, I am a project manager. Basically, I'm a product manager. So I have my exceptional, like, I can't give them more praise, or an exceptional technical specialist. We have a land of amazing technical specialists here in Ukraine, but at the same time, they do need the guidance, right? So tell me about maybe something that product managers, project managers always do, like overlook in terms of working and motivating their people, especially when it comes to delivering the technical solution.
So it's interesting that you said motivating their people. So I think one of the things we do wrong is we think that like these are our people, they're team members, right? It's a
Okay.
collaboration, it's partnership. So that's first of all.
Yeah,
But
they're not
um,
employees. They're yeah.
yeah, so that's first, and that's something I really had to work on. Like I had a boss when I was at Pivotal Labs who I would say something like my team, my engineers, and he would say, no, they are the engineers and the team. Like they're the team you work on, not my team. And it was like Graham like really
Yeah,
drilled that into me. And I was like, I now
yeah.
understand why you're mentioning this because it changes their relationship, right? I'm not any more important than any individual engineer's perspective. I do
They're partners.
lead, but I lead through them believing that I'm heading in the right direction. Like to lead means that people will follow. And to encourage people to follow is a partnership, is a collaboration. And so that's a big thing. But the way you do that, I think, is the thing I see most people missing out on. I say the role of product management is to decide what to do next. We are the people in the room that decide what to do next. We are the deciders. There are lots of
Yep.
inputs. We have to decide. There's lots of communication we have to do, listening and then explaining why, like what it is we decided. But the thing that I see most missing, and this is why I've been giving this speech called The Only Three Questions You Ever Need, is the steps before that and bringing people along more on that journey. So the three questions I talk about that lead up to number three, which is where should we go next? What should we do next? Is where do we want to go? That first question is where I think the most is missing, which is what is the vision here for the company? What is the vision here for the product? Whose problems are we trying to solve? What part of the market are we trying to serve? Right? Answering that question and having that be your North Star and having that be well communicated and well internalized by your team members so that they feel it and they are inspired by it. And it is a
Mm-hmm.
guiding light for them when they make their decisions. That
Mm.
step at whatever
Oh, that's
level you
super
at
clear.
is
Super
always
clear.
missing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so often
Mm-hmm.
missing. And then there's this in between step, which is where are we coming from, right? You choose your point out there. And then before you can choose your next point, you have to know where you are right now. What's your current location? And this is why a lot of product operations and data driven product management and data driven decisions is becoming more popular because a lot of people would just choose where to go next without realizing what was data telling them? What qualitative and quantitative analysis could they do to understand what's currently going well or not? But to me, that's only a piece of the puzzle. And it's a reflection of what's currently going on. But in order to know what you want to change from that current state, you have to have established where do we want to go.
Yep.
And so that would be the number one thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. What's number two?
Well, the number two would be the whole my team thing, like the feeling
Okay.
like you're the CEO of the product. Like whoever wrote that needs to just be burned or something. And of course, I'm going to find out it was someone very, very important. But it was just a really poor reflection of how
Yeah.
to work in the world. Like it didn't reflect cooperation. It didn't reflect collaboration. It didn't reflect the nature of getting the most out of everyone you work with and that we can't do this alone. And all of the things that I think are so crucial to being a successful product manager, product leader. And there are lots of, by the way, different versions of this as you go up, right? So when you're a product manager, you have to see your engineering and design team as your partners. When you are a manager of product managers or director of product management, group product manager, whatever you want to call that, your number one person becomes your engineering counterpart. And you have
Yeah.
to see them as a very clear partnership and work as if the two of you are co-founders or co-parents for this group that you're leading. And that's the same all the way up as the number one person that's most important for your partnership, for your success. But once you reach like a VP or C level, you have to recognize that the other parts of your C suite, the other VPs, are your first team, right? That together you and the other VPs are going to bring the company forward, that you're going to help the company grow, and that it's no longer just your product silo and the product and technology silo that you're focused on. You really need to focus on how product and engineering integrates into the strategies of sales and the strategies of customer success and their pain points and their goals. And the other teams and marketing and operations and implementations, right? Like there's so many other teams that get involved, and you have to see yourself as part of the leadership team and not only the product team.
I remember HubSpot, I was really, really into the HubSpot culture code. I remember back in 2018 or something, they released their culture code. The book was available online. And it was one of the points that I remembered is that transparency doesn't equal democracy. So there is still a decision maker. You are still a decision maker, right? But I think what you're talking about, that you gotta be transparent and open about why you're making this decision, right? And at some point,
100%.
even explain, and even if someone disagrees, just lay out all the insights, all the data that you have to support your vision. It would be a nice exercise if you need to support your idea moving forward, right? Well, try it out with your partners, with your colleagues, then try it with your peers or board members.
And so what I would say is 100% yes, you should always test out things before you go into an important meeting and know what's going to be the result. Yeah. That is like a big point of advice for executives, is like the meetings before the meeting, right? Like one-on-one meeting with everybody so that you understand how to phrase things, what the value is of what you're talking about that you might not have understood before, what objections are coming your way. And what you just mentioned about HubSpot and transparency and how transparency doesn't equal democracy, you are a decision maker. As a product manager, you are a decision maker. You are the person who decides what to do next. There's a lot of weight on our shoulders. But good decision makers explain that why and empower other people to make decisions. And they may not want the weight on their shoulders of these bigger decisions, but people still like autonomy and control over their sphere of influence. And so you want to be empowering them to do that by providing good whys, good North Stars, good guidelines. And that's how it works better. And also that they can feel more secure because they haven't made the bigger decision. That wasn't their choice. But what you said about building a case, I 100% agree. Like, you have to show the team the data about why you've made these choices. But if someone disagrees, I wouldn't say it's only me who has to build a case. I should be listening. I should respect the people on my team and the fact that they are smart and that they are dedicated to the same mission and vision as I am. And they're
willing to sound up their opinions. Some people are so scared because of the lack of leadership. They think that they do not have the right to speak, right? Mm-hmm.
But if they're going to speak up, rather than saying, I have all this data that says I'm right, ask them why they are vocal. What is causing you to speak up? Why are you passionate about this? What data points do you have that show your idea is going to help us get closer to our goal? Which is why I again say, where are we going is the number one thing you need to have, because then you can have the team have a discussion about, okay, we've now got two options on the table, two different perspectives about how we can get closer to our goal based on where we are now, right? And then have a constructive conversation where it's no longer I, as the product manager, am telling my team what to do. It's I, as the product manager, have information from certain sources. Other people on the team have information from other sources. We are both presenting options for how to move forward. And we are presenting cases for why we think our options are going to be more impactful at getting us where we want to go. And then having the team have discussions. And from my perspective, when you have a respectful conversation like that, more often than not, the two people who are disagreeing, if they're really authentically listening, one of them realizes the other person is right. But when you're fighting, it's hard to admit that. But when you see yourselves as part of the same team aligned, trying to get to the same goal, it isn't about being right, and it isn't about your idea being the one that went forward. You know that you are successful when the best idea moves forward. As a team, you are successful. And that's a really big shift.
I have so many thoughts right now that I juggle with in my mind, because what I remember from Simon Sinek's ideas is that money, like, let's talk about this question, where are we going? We all want to, we don't want to say that where we're going is making more money. It seems like it's such a cliche. It's not something that you can advertise. It doesn't sound pretty, but for a lot of people, the goal is actually, is financial, right? So
I would disagree.
You disagree? You think, because Simon, he argues that money is only the fuel to get to your goal. It's never the goal itself, right?
I agree.
And I understand. So I think we should start with understanding what do we really want to achieve? What do we want other people, our customers, partners, whoever, to associate our brand with, right? I don't know. I listened to this interview of Bob Iger, Disney CEO. Yeah. He's saying that our mission is spread happiness. Oh my God, it's such an amazing mission, such an amazing goal, right? But it's too broad. So sometimes, having this clear crystal vision is so difficult. In order to align the steps.
It is difficult, but it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment in time. And that's what people misunderstand. Yes, it is hard. Yes, coming up with an inspirational vision, mission, North Star that is customer centric and not financially centric, and allows for people to understand what their role can do to contribute to it, is hard. But that investment is the most worthwhile investment you can make, because it makes all the rest of the decisions easier. It prevents analysis paralysis. It prevents second guessing and self-doubt. It prevents buyer's remorse. It prevents all of these anxiety-filling things that eventually lead to decision fatigue and people not wanting to make decisions, or throwing decisions, or having countless meetings that don't get resolved into a choice, right? They keep pushing off a decision. All of that is wasted time and energy because you haven't made that initial investment in really having a clear vision, in really having a clear mission at whatever cascading level that needs to be, and well communicating it and well instilling it in your people. It is the most important thing you can do. And if you've ever been part of a company that's like that, and I've been part of them twice, technically 3 times when I ran one, it is truly a different experience. It is a different experience when you are part of a company that says, we want to change the way the world learns. It is a different experience when you say, we want to help entrepreneurs grow with confidence. It is a different experience when I ran a consultancy and our goal was to help other people sustain the agile practices they wanted to do. We weren't there to build code. We were there to help them run better technology organizations.
To be honest with you, it's as I'm talking to you, I'm actually crystallizing my own mission and my own desire with my agency. I don't want to merely help people do a bunch of podcasts and release them every single day. I actually want to help people to create amazing video products, because video is my focus. And I really want people to be able to tell stories through the conversations in the video format. So it's my
And so I would
it's my
take that
real
at a higher
passion.
level. That's the what. Your real passion is helping people spread ideas. The videos are the method in which
Yes,
they spread
for
ideas.
sure.
But your vision is to help thought leaders spread their ideas widely in ways that resonate, in ways that people are gravitated to it, that are audio visual, which means it's better for the ear and the eye, that it's hitting more than one sense, right? That's why
I
you want to
want
help people
people
create better videos.
to resonate with facial expressions and with the emotions to, on the human level. That's what I'm really,
Yeah.
really
But you want people to
interested.
connect to ideas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
That's
want to
that's my
help
why,
thought leaders
probably.
spread ideas. I mean, I would change your mission title to be "We help thought leaders spread their ideas." Because that includes podcasts, that includes blog writing, that includes video, right? And you want to be full service
YouTube,
as an
yeah.
agency, helping people be their authentic selves, right? And to
Yeah.
spread what they authentically know to be true so that other people can know it, so that other people can employ it, so that other people can use it. And it's
Yeah.
different, right? You could see now how, if that is your mission, how your employees will think differently about what they do.
Here's an example of Tami helping coming up with the vision. So everybody, this is how it works. Actually, cool.
Yeah, no,
That was amazing.
I'm happy to do vision consulting for anyone. Like North Star Consulting, I'm very happy to do, and I often do it in seconds. And more than that, like I do it in seconds, and then you have to iterate on it. Like whatever I just produced for you is not perfect. You'll have to adapt it.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, as I said, I will provide you with advice. It has to feel authentically you. You should change it to be authentically you. You're the player on the field, but that's a really good example of the way that I coach, right? Like I've synthesized a good amount of information really quickly. I'm going to give you strong, actionable advice. I'm going to explain to you why the advice is valuable and why it's different than the path you were going to take before. And hopefully, I've convinced you to adapt whatever it is I've just provided you into something you can move forward with.
Super, super useful. This is really powerful and inspiring. Temi, thank you so much. It was a blast. Thank you.
This was so much fun. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad that my interview on Tatiana's podcast about branding inspired this conversation, because they were definitely very different conversations, but equally enjoyable.
Yeah, we live in the same city right now. She's also in Kiev now. Yeah, interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So if you need to maybe use Tami's services, I will leave all the links to Tami's websites resources in the description. Other than that, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, and I would say that if you're inspired by these 3 questions that we just went through, I give a talk called The Only 3 Questions You Ever Need, and I'm giving it for free right now to any group that wants to do it virtually, because I'm trying to get onto a TED stage. And in order to do that, I need to do a lot of iteration and a lot of feedback. So if you want to have a conversation and learn about how to use these 3 questions in your organization, in your teams, in nonprofits you're part of, or anything else, please schedule something with me. I'm happy to do it. It's like calendly.com/Tami/where to, because where to is the most important question. And I really would love to keep spreading these ideas.